Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to discuss social movements and art on chain. I'm joined here today on stage and online by some of the leading voices of the NFT art space, which is very exciting. We have Sarisa Kojima calling in from Thailand, Annika Meyer from Berlin, and Anya Catherine Dejati, the artist duo behind Operator. So before we begin, I'd like to maybe spend a few minutes just introducing yourselves. Maybe we can start with Sarisa, then Annika, and then Operator.
Hi, I'm Sarisa Kojima. I'm half Thai, half Japanese, currently based in Thailand. I'm a digital artist as well as illustration and manga.
Annika?
Good morning, Paris. Hi, Nisha. Hi, Anya. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Yeah, my name is Annika. I'm a curator and writer. I'm based in Hamburg. And my background, I'm actually an art historian, but very early on, I got interested in digital art and through Instagram in artists working with social media as a medium. And I think at some point, all of us who have a background in digital art got introduced to NFTs, and that's how I started working with galleries, platforms, artists in the NFT space on projects such as with Anya and Dija on the project Unsigned, or with Marina Abramovic on her project earlier this year. I think that's basically it.
Good morning. I'm Dija.
And I'm Anya.
So Anya and I have a collaborative practice bringing together performance art, immersive environments, both physical and digital, often simultaneously, and technology. So, you want to add anything?
We're from LA, now living in Berlin, and after 6 years of working together on more large-scale environment and performance projects, we started incorporating the blockchain and NFTs into our practice starting last year, so about 1 year ago, which led to the project I think we're going to be focused on today, Unsigned with Annika.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to ask a few questions about previous projects just to set the scene. Sarisa, from what I've understood from speaking to you is that when you started getting into NFTs, you started realizing its potential for, to change and to impact your local artistic community and also your practice. I was wondering if you could let us know a bit how NFTs or the NFT art space has impacted you and your local artistic community, and maybe talk a bit about Sweaty NFT.
Yes, sure. At first, when I start with the art career, it's not really successful. I mean, like 6, 7 years ago. So I would stop and go back to the corporate job and stuff like that. So I save up money, and then I found NFT. It's kind of like I'm able to connect with the art world again. So it's open like the new world to me. So and be able to like find a new audience and stuff like that. So I'm finally be able to connect with the art world and connect with the new artists that I don't know, like the whole world, and especially in Thailand. So people really struggle with being an artist and as a career or like earn money. So we figured out that and tried to gather together and try to figure out what is NFT. At first, people barely don't know, about the technologies, but they're helping out. So like 1.5 years ago, I start from zero that I don't understand, like how I'm gonna use this, especially people in my community right now in Thailand. The economy is totally different, and the society don't expect that artists gonna become like a career or the job that will provide, for people. So I will listen to so many Thai artists that they don't have opportunity to sell their art or like reaching out to the international stage. So when this NFT happened, many artists are able to connect with another part of the world, and they also became like more open mind about NFT and to learn languages, especially like to learn to connect with people because they have this eager like, okay, people interested in art, they're able to sell art, they want to learn to get into the opportunity, the new opportunity. So they start learning language, they're learning how to market, learning how to sell their art or like present their art in English. So yeah, that's what happened in the community. And then me and my partner are from Puerto Rico, but he's American. So we figured out about the tools that will help the artists. And at first, it's about smart contract. We start kick up a little bit with Tezos smart contract in March. We received the grant from TZ APEC, which is the Tezos Asia Pacific. And we start working on Tezos smart contract and build the tools for artists. I'm not 100% like a developer, but I have a little bit of this, those, that about UI, UX design. So I would just partner up with my partner and making this tool called Sweet NFT. Currently, it's under construction, but we try the beta test with try to help people launching the project because we know many people in Southeast Asia still have like a economy problem and they need support on that. So that's what I do and what happened in Thai in Southeast Asian economy, creative industry as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I think we're going to touch upon those points a bit later on today. But now talking about the Unsigned collection. So, Operator, you recently launched this collection in collaboration with Annika, and we're all here today. Can you tell us a bit about the project and how it was conceived?
Sure, I'll take this. So we were at a dinner, and there was an article in The Guardian that had just come out, and there's a researcher, Dr. Helen Gorel, who's at the University of Dundee, I believe, and she has a book called Women Can't Paint, which is about gender inequality in the art world. And one of the findings that was mentioned in this Guardian article that was just circulating a few days before was that when a male artist signs their artwork, the value of that artwork goes up. And when a woman artist signs their artwork, the value actually goes down. So the signed version, the female signature, actually devalued the artwork. It cost less than an artwork that wasn't signed. And this was something that we read, and it was just kind of like a gut punch. We were like, how can this be? You know, it's supposed to be a moment of pride when you're signing an artwork and you're attaching it to your being and you've just worked on it. And so this just seemed so frustrating and wrong. And we were all at dinner, and we're like, you know, we need to raise the value of women's signatures. We should be selling the signatures. And this is me, Deja, and Annika sitting at dinner. We're like, we're going to start selling female artists' signatures to raise the value. And so literally the next day, that's what we did. And we did extend it. It's a collection of 100 women and non-binary artist signatures. And while the research was about male artist signatures versus female artist signatures, we feel like just because the research isn't there doesn't mean that the privilege of the male signature also is probably affecting non-binary people as well. So we extended it to include non-binary individuals. It's a collection of 100 signatures, which is also the collection itself we see as a conceptual artwork, raising the symbolic and literal value of the signatures.
And how were the artists selected for, how did you select the 100 signatures? Maybe Annika, you want to answer that?
Yeah. So maybe one thing that might be interesting to mention, because at the dinner guests were artists, curators, and just people from the cultural scene in Berlin. And we were asked to sign an edition, a print edition, during that dinner. And there were men and women. And then I joked, well, as women, we shouldn't sign the edition because otherwise the price would go down, right? According to that article. So that's how the idea came together, because out of a joke and out of us like really being asked to sign something and then reading this a couple of days prior and thinking, well, what we now do with just a pencil and a piece of paper might actually have an impact. And when it comes to choosing the artist, 100, we tried to, since it's NFTs, we focused on female and non-binary artists from the NFT space, or artists with a background in digital art and net art, such as Liz from Net Art, from the iconic net art duo Übermorgen. For example, her, or basically, but we basically tried to bring the whole NFT space together. 100 might not be enough, but we had to make a cut at some point. And our idea is also to make this travel all over the world, in the form of installation through institution. And we showed it, I think, when was that, 2 months ago or 1 month ago, at a museum, Francisco Carolinum in Linz, during Ars Electronica. So we'd be happy to keep speaking about this topic because it's highly relevant.
Yeah, actually, the other day, Dita, we were talking about this project, and you mentioned you had heard or learned a lot of interesting things from the anecdotes that the artists were telling you as they were participating in the project. Could you maybe give us a few examples of what you learned?
Yes, so upon inviting folks to participate in Unsigned, often we received a response with a story and said, well, I would love to participate, and actually, I'm so glad you're doing this project because I have been told that I could not be represented because collectors would be less likely to invest in my practice and purchase my works because later down the line, it is assumed that I might have a child or I might get married, and therefore somehow I might not be taking my art practice as seriously, so my earning potential and their investment as a result would be sacrificed. And so we received many stories like this, or also I remember one artist who has, I won't name, but they have a alias that they use that is, I guess, ambiguous what their gender might be, and this was very much intentional, and they sell their works for quite a bit on Super Rare, and they said, I don't think if I were going by my birth name, which signifies that I am a woman, that I would be selling these works and being financially successful on Super Rare. So it's such a pleasure to finally be signing with my name in order to participate in raising the both symbolic and literal value of women artists' signatures and non-binary artists' signatures.
No, that's really shocking, and it highlights the importance of this project today. We think that we're beyond that, but we clearly are not. Sarisa, have you encountered any form of gender inequality in your practice?
Well, I really agree. I just want to talk about the Unside project. I didn't know that before, even you guys on Tezos, maybe like we're missing out like so many collection. But we was talking like several days ago about this, and I was like, oh my God, this is really cool, because I also having this kind of issue, like at first, I'm a transgender, transgender female, and I was not like, I try not to say that on my bio, because I'm worried that I'm gonna get a bad effect. But it's every time I try to talk on the space, my voice is different, and people were just questioning, they're not seeing my face, and sometimes they ignore me or something like that. It's happened quite a lot, but I try not to give up. It's just like the same situation. I have to survive too. I had to make money or whatever, successful in financial. So it's just forcing like that to like try not to tell. And finally, I was just seeing more people, including Unside Project, right? Like everyone start talk more about you should like just finally show yourself. But it is something that I I would say like it's not people just so familiar with the certain culture about like okay this male artist doing male stuff, boy stuff, or like and on Twitter space, I'm on Twitter space a lot. They would call like a bro yo culture because when you go to that social audio, they were just speaking something different. I don't even understand like right and that's kind of like they try to normalize that. So there's something like that. And I was just like, okay, it's fine. I cannot go to this space and understand the context. I already have like a problem understand English and this type of English. I totally don't get it either. Like, hey, bro, yo, and they say something different, right? So like, oh, I'm gonna start doing the space. It's just same with the Ansai. Like we need to start raising a different thing if we want to if we want the something different we have to create it or like make a new rule, make a new condition, raise awareness about. So I try to make this space about some LGBTQ some days with my friend. They're also from LA, like we call like a LGBTQ body positive space every week. So to try to like make a safe space for people. But of course it is I encourage that quite a lot also. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I wanted to talk about the technology, but actually maybe based on that, we can talk a little bit more about, in a way, the promise of what Web3 tries to represent. And Annika, you've moved from, let's say, more traditional art world, more now into the NFT space and Web3. Do you feel like there are any improvements or changes in the space, or are we replicating the same problems?
I think there are improvements, but then at the same time, there's sort of like also the same problems. I mean, it's definitely sort of not really easier, but artists now have the possibility to sort of take care more of their own career because they have through the blockchain and through marketplaces also such as Tezos and Object, an easy entrance level to actually, selling or trying to sell their work to an audience and getting in touch with collectors through Twitter. So that's definitely an improvement. And I know many artists who prior worked with brands have done day jobs as, I don't know, as, very different day jobs. And they, can finally focus on their art practice. But then at the same time, I think if you really want to have a long-term career as an artist, there's at some point you have to start thinking about working with galleries. Artists get an interest in showing their work on museums, and that way we might end up with very similar structures. Because I guess that's what my feedback from many artists I'm friends with, I work with, that it's a lot what they suddenly have to take care of, right? It's not just, oh, I create art and that's about it. No, you create art, you have to publish it. And I mean, I remember when we started, it was like we were at the dinner and then we were not at the dinner anymore. And the next day we were just on the phone constantly, figuring out all the details, the pricing, the concept, the texts. Just minting. I mean, that's like a lot of work. And then the pressure that comes with releasing a project, and artists are suddenly alone with all of that, right? And then they're on marketeer, they're on accountant, they're like everything. I think it's an improvement, but at the same time, it's also sort of like a burden because so many tasks are connected with it. And I think, what I expect that we're going to see maybe over the next 6 to 12 months, that artists start working, with galleries, will be represented because they simply A, need help, and B, also need a feedback partner and someone they can rely on to help out with daily tasks or also strategic questions and things like that. And I already see that happening because artists basically figured out they're doing the job of the middleman themselves. So the NFT space was so proud of having gotten rid of the middleman without realizing, well, there's a reason for a middleman because they're actually doing quite useful things. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of the middleman is an interesting one because it's the part of the promise of Web3 is kind of the way that artists that were maybe overlooked before finally found their space and their audience and could speak directly to their audience. And I Googled actually to prepare for this talk what the definition of social movement is, and I got a large group of people loosely coming together to achieve a particular goal, often related to social or political change. With that in mind, and with the promise of obviously a more equitable distribution of attention, wealth, finally attributing value to digital art, which was previously overlooked, would you maybe consider the NFT art space as a form of a social movement within the contemporary art scene? Or is that too much to ask from it?
I wouldn't say the whole scene is a movement, because I also think mixed into the artists that are, like Annika said, trying to build their careers and take steps to connect with their audience and make their life possible through the creation of their artwork, which there was never really doors available, especially in certain parts of the world, if you don't have access to networks where, you know, bigger galleries that can support you. There was no way for you to be sharing your art to people all over the world. So in that way, it's great. But I wouldn't say everything happening is part of a movement, because you also have people who are really just there to make money, and they don't really care about the social aspects or those doors being opened. It's more of an opportunity for like a new frontier. But I do think Web3's promises and the ideals that it wants to live up to with democratizing and decentralizing and all of this is, there's a lot of value. But I also think, like you mentioned, that it's like, who is it better for? And when we look at like Unicorn DAO's research on how much of the huge sums of money that are spent on NFT artists' work, that I think it was like 5% of that was going to women artists. And so when we look at that, it's like, yeah, it's amazing, it's a new frontier, it's the future, but like, whose future is it, and who's being left out of that future? Whose work is actually being bought? So I think looking at that and saying, yes, it has all these values and it's improving on all of these issues, but what issues is it just kind of replicating, and how can we actually make the changes that it's making include everyone and lift everyone up, instead of just lift up the few who are already benefiting in Web 2 and in society generally.
And Sarisa, do you have anything to add from your experience about, you know, the distribution of attention and wealth and how that's impacted you?
I could say like I'm being here very seriously with the technologies. I would study a few more of blockchain and how it's gonna change a lot of transaction and stuff like that. But what I'm seeing nowadays is like artists and people try to merge the creative industry with the blockchain. That's very interesting. I'm still looking for another, step, or like the future of this, because it's not only right now it's limit to the digital art and everything has to sell in the form of the file. It's very small scale of the transaction that it can do, and the form of how we purchasing NFT. I just feel like when we go back to I think 14, 15 years ago, when we start having this social media, whatever, to connect, the career about YouTuber or like video or stuff like that, we don't have that career 14 years ago. And right now, after the Web 2 start, right, we have this content creator or any career that I never seen like before. And if I grew up, if I was in high school and I know that they are this type of career, I might just like try, practice. But what I grew up is just, okay, artist, nurse, doctor, or like just a normal thing. But right now, it's so much opportunity. Same with the new generation that they are grew up right now. what is providing for them in the future of the Web3. It's beyond what we are doing right now. So what happened in our region is I'm going to many high school. I was just telling them like this is very different from when I grew up. You guys grew up with the internet. You get access to learn how to code, to learn how to, a new stuff, a new technologies. You guys know Bitcoin. You know how to trade. You know how to with the crypto thing. This is gonna be your future. That what I would tell like the young generation. It happened to be like some session just for young trans LGBTQ in the university and school. I'm just telling you like practice become our future because maybe I'm too old to learn, but I try to learn more about this. I'm about to be 40 soon. And then you will be the next generation that will shape all this Web3, all this blockchain technology in the transaction. So I put that in their hand as well, because it's going to become more probably in the next 10, 4 years. Same with when we got Web2 and social media and stuff like that. And right now we have like Korea for that type of service. But I do put some hope because in Southeast Asia, we behind a lot of things in the Western in terms of the art, our creative industry. People here would just not really go to gallery and like, oh, want to buy stuff like that. We have totally different culture. But since the NFT start, I think people start looking into creative industry in a different way, and people were just more open mind about how the artist or art working. Not in Japan. Japan, it's another thing, but in Southeast Asia, it's very interesting that most of people were just working for another company or another big project in the Western world. So they're kind of like a supplier. And people just do that because they accept this cheap salary or cheap money, I don't know, Fiverr or whatever that people pay. But this type of thing happening, and I think people will learn how to like put the value more on themselves, because now they see like the world is connect, and they see how other people do it. They want to try to improve themselves and like learn more English, learn how to communicate, be more like a mature, more like professional, how they do it and stuff like that. So, but I still put a lot of hope on these NFT technologies. Right now, my partner, he's not an artist. So he tried to working on another project, kind of like working with a hospital, like clinical trial, try to use blockchain and NFT in those industry. So I would see like how like this is going to be the future. I just really don't know why, but I think that you and I like never have to connect or get to know each other. But right now we have this thing called NFT, and we just happen like, okay, right now, oh, I see new face, I see new people every day. So I think it's a good start for this industry, and it's happened to be with the creative, with art, because it's the thing that we are. It's kind of like help us get through the pandemic moment as well, and it's the thing that people really appreciate and see that this is beautiful. It's the most easiest to connect people together.
Thank you. Yes. So yeah, the technology is certainly at the core of it. And actually, going back to the unsigned collection, I don't know who wants to answer this, but why did you feel it was important to use Web3 technology and launch the project as an NFT project?
To go back to this dinner that is becoming to hold a lot of mythology in it. So there was something at that dinner that kind of, and Annika, I think you were also driving this, which was speed, okay? And the ability, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts as well, because coming from your background in the traditional art world, how long does it take to ideate a project, design that project, put that project into a production pipeline, market that project, find a home for that project, an institution, and how long does it take to build awareness around this project. Now, we happen to do this in the course of a 2.5, 3-hour dinner where we didn't eat much, but we were very productive.
We left hungry.
We left hungry. By the end, we had named the project. We had come up with the design of the project because, you know, if you're going to sell signatures, there's many ways you could sell these signatures, right? You could, or how would they look? Are they all black ink on white paper? Do we allow them to use different textures of paper? Do we allow them to use different colors? Do we allow them to use digital signatures or only handwritten ones? And all of these, I mean, it seems like it's quite simple in the output, but there were a lot of constraints we needed to decide right then and there. But back to the technology, I think we had the opportunity to immediately have a platform where we could mint the artworks. We could tap into our existing communities to immediately create awareness through the project. And it was, you know, Annika's community, it was operators' community, it was the Tezos community, and the other artists who and creators who are building platforms. FX Hash was there that night, and through that, everyone at that dinner was able to create a project by the next morning.
The next day, with the first 4 were minted literally the next day.
Yes, and sold within minutes, right? And every week we sold 12 signatures, and through the network effect of the communities of the participants as well, who were also selling artworks of their own, these signatures were sold out in a few minutes. And anyone who knows our practice knows that we aren't a huge fan of this sort of sellout engineering, but I think it is quite a statement of how much we were able to accelerate this project with, you know, crypto Twitter, with you know, Object and Tezos as the platform to quickly make this project something that wasn't even a thought prior to going into the dinner. And the next morning, we started an 8-week project that ended in many museum acquisitions, as well as a show at Francisco Carolinum that ended up in the permanent collection. So Annika, as you know, with your experience in the traditional art world, have you seen a project like this start and happen and end in an 8-week period and end in a museum collection?
Not to my knowledge. Maybe that happened prior. I'm pretty sure maybe somehow, maybe not. Yeah, because that's also what blockchain makes possible, right? I mean, for this project, the creation of value was extremely important. Because, you know, there's, men sign an artwork, price goes up, women sign, price goes down. So we really needed to make a statement with actually selling the signatures. And that's what blockchain immediately makes possible, because otherwise you would have needed to find a gallery or speak with your gallerist. I mean, we could, as artists and all, because I'm in this project, I'm sort of like an artist because we came up with
Not
the
sort
concept
of,
and everything
you are.
together. Yeah, I am, yes, yeah, because we did the concept together. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, during the dinner, you know, because you also asked about Web3, I mean, there were many people from the community, as Dija has just mentioned. Paul from FX Hash was there. Everyone from Tezos, such as Diane and Reed, were there, but also Matt Dryhurst and Holly Herndon. Yeah, and they figured out that we started working on something. And then, yeah, everyone basically who was at the dinner ended up, you know, helping us or being part of the first round of promotion with a blurb. And we actually didn't really tell them what the whole project was about, but I guess you all know blurbs on books, right? So we told them, yeah, we just basically need a blurb from you to you at this point unknown project, but it was clear for everyone on Twitter that this was actually the case. So everyone was super excited what would come the next day. But yeah, that speed, I think blockchain made it possible. And I also remember that Anya and Lija, when we were on the phone, the next day, figuring out all the details, because you also need to take care of license agreements and contracts with the artists. We had to speak with lawyers and so on. And both of them said, well, we've never done a project, usually it takes, and that's like actually the case, right? You usually think weeks and months about the project and plan everything, but we were like, no, we have to act quickly because the article in The Guardian has just been published, and a lot of people on Twitter were like really angry and frustrated about the whole thing. I spoke with Lynn Hirschman-Leeson. She's one of the pioneers, or the media art pioneer at this year's Ars Electronica at Art NFT Linz 3-day conference and exhibition I curated for Francisco Carolinum in Linz. And it's like really depressing and frustrating to hear that, we also spoke about this topic and how difficult it has been for her as a woman artist to be taken serious, and they called her a crazy woman and so on and so on. And then I simply pulled Anya on stage to also tell Lynn about some of the stories we have heard when artists actually confirmed and said, well, it's a very important project, and like basically not much has changed except it's now possible, but also social media had made it possible, right? When women weren't dependent, or women photographers weren't dependent on men, right? Prior, women were basically the subject and photographs, and through social media, it has become way easier, to promote and start a career as a photographer. If we think about Avida Biström, who is also part of the Unsigned project, or someone like Leah Schrager, suddenly there's not only a male gaze, but also female gaze, and technologies make such things and improvement possible.
So would you say, just pushing that argument a little further, do you feel like Web3 technology is facilitating the creation and distribution of socially engaged art? Open question.
I wouldn't say that all art that's using NFTs is socially engaged, because you still also see a lot of very overpriced, hypersexualized, bad photography of women who probably don't know that their photo is being sold, shot by men, then circulating in these platforms. So I wouldn't say that just because it's using the technology, it's by default socially engaged, because there's a lot of stuff that I wish there was more reflection and conversation and questions around consent and the muse and the photographer, and like traditional gender dynamics, I wish didn't have a position in the NFT and Web3 art space still happening. But I think there are a lot of projects that are able to exist, and if they're resonating with people, do get shared and do start bringing people together and do start conversations that might never have institutions allowing them to exist. But if they have the right people behind them and they have a message that's resonating, are able to kind of like have a life of their own and turn into a movement. And I think with Unsigned, and when we saw the title of the panel today, thinking about Unsigned as a movement, it's funny because, as we said, it was like a conceptual project, but then also we saw like 3 weeks after Unsigned, there was several different artists that had all participated in Unsigned, like Nancy Baker, Cahill, and Connie Bakshi, and Sasha Stiles were all in LA at the same time. And then they got a photo together, and they're like the Unsigned crew, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So like the people, the artists in the community suddenly then were in the same city, and they all had this link to each other. And I also think that's something, and coming from the dance world, and even I feel like pre-Web3 NFT art world, we weren't, like getting coffee and drinks with other experiential installation artists. Or like in the dance world, it feels more competitive, where, you know, women are like, she got that role and I didn't get that, and it feels very one-to-one, this scarcity mentality of not wanting to bound together. And I think what's really great and what Unsigned does is it really showed the power of like what happens when all of us are supporting each other. We're not like, we're just gonna promote our stuff, but we're like, this woman's work is absolutely amazing. I'm going to share her work with my collectors. Like the way that we're bounding together, we're sharing resources, networks, and supporting each other's projects is something I've really never seen in the dance world, in our past practice. And I think it's very special, and I hope that continues to grow, because we're way stronger, not to be cheesy, but we're way stronger together. And patriarchy's best tool is for women to be competing with each other and putting each other down. And our best way to move forward is to ignore that socialization.
I guess the definition that I said earlier about social movement could be more geared towards the Unsigned collection than the wider NFT space. We have 5 more minutes left. I don't know if there's any questions from the audience. Otherwise, we can just,
So I absolutely adore the Unsigned concept. So I think it's great. I'm just interested in whether you have like experienced pushback from the art world and the activist world about NFTs as a platform or a medium, because I have seen a lot of like anti-NFT sentiment especially in queer and activist spaces, and also, to be honest, a lot of like reactionary and very hostile sentiment from like the patriarchy in NFT spaces and blockchain spaces. So I'm just wondering what your experience was.
Yes, we did receive some pushback, but not too much. But I think one of the most interesting aspects, we had one conversation with an artist who called us immediately and said, I don't want to participate because I don't think my signature will sell, and part of this is because I'm not part of the younger generation, and the hot, cool, artists that are, this person who we were having this conversation with, she was saying, well, a lot of these top-selling artists are my students, actually, and, everyone wants to talk to me because I'm an old girl, but, but when it comes down to it, no one's going to buy my signature. And almost this idea and this mentality of ageism within the crypto and NFT art space only supporting, the success of younger artists. So, this artist's signature did sell, by the way, and they did end up participating, but it was interesting. I know it's maybe not the exact kind of idea you had in mind in your question, but I think it was interesting the sort of notion of where does the success align with, and in what age groups and types of artists as well.
Annika, did you hear pushback for using NFTs at all for this project? I don't remember any.
No, we haven't, but I guess that's the main reason is because I think it's obvious that it's part of the concept, right? We couldn't do this project without blockchain and also without a green blockchain such as Tezos. I think that's why we didn't receive any negative feedback, but maybe something completely different. And also back to a question prior about social media, social movements and the blockchain. I think what blockchain is especially good for when it comes to fundraisers and so on, you can do them quickly. Social media channels are the promotion tool, and people who donate can actually see where the money goes to, right? I curated, for example, the tribute to Herbert W. Franke, and it's not really a fundraiser. I mean, the main idea wasn't this being a fundraiser, but Herbert W. Franke, the pioneer of computer art, died in the ZKM in Karlsruhe. He houses, they have his archive in-house, and they don't have the funds to take care of digitizing his manuscripts and at 1,800. So when I had the idea to do a tribute, Susanne, his wife, and I had the idea to connect it with a little fundraiser, because 20,000 euro are needed to digitize the 1,800 manuscripts. And then we said, well, if more money will be donated, let's just find a foundation in South Africa that gives access to kids and young adults to technology. And yeah, that way, you know, we can clearly show where the money goes to, right? Everyone sees the money goes to the wallet of the foundation, and then they will see where the transactions go to. And so on and so on, how much the artists donate, for example, and so on. So the blockchain is actually making these things very transparent, and you actually know where your money goes to, right? If you donate something. So I guess, and it's quick. It's really quick.
I think we're out of time. Maybe can we spend a few more minutes?
Question from Roger.
Hello. I think you've given me schizophrenia. I'm both deeply depressed and deeply ecstatic. I was walking down this bank in 1968, throwing stones at the police. Women's liberation. Here we are in 2023 with the same problem. Maybe we need to redesign human nature. How do you raise children so the label man, woman, your age, ageism in my case, the problem is so deep in human nature that we need to modify it? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for making me schizophrenic.
Thanks,
Thank you, Roger. You're welcome.
Well, I think with this we can wrap up. Thank you so much for that concluding remark on our behalf. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed the talk.